The biggest problem with training your lactate threshold is knowing where it is in the first place, and knowing what it is might help. So let's break it down and then we can take your training to the next level. And you can consider helping the channel as well by subscribing. Up to you.
So here we are on some runs this week with the aim of simplifying and demystifying everything around your lactate thresholds, because that's probably the first thing we need to clear up. Plural, there are two.
All right. Let's start really simple. As you can see, there are 5, in theory, heart rate training zones. This is my max heart rate here, but we're going to simplify this. Hold up. I prefer to focus on 1 system, 2 system, 3 system. So already simpler. 1 and 2 are together. They're the aerobic base zones. You've got the tempo zones, and then I'm just going to say harder work. Now, lactate threshold, as I said, there's 2. One of them, this is called LT1, lactate turn point 1. This is called LT2, which is lactate turn point 2. We're going to focus on lactate turn point 1 right now, which is when the body first detects any lactate in the blood above normal levels when you're exercising.
Sweet. Already much easier to imagine now, and as you can see, I'm out on my long Sunday easy run, and it's really easy. You can hopefully see on the side of the screen exactly where my heart rate is in relation to where my LT1, my first lactate turn point, is as well, so I'm not even stressing out. I'm nowhere near it. And the beautiful thing about training here in your easy aerobic zones is these are the runs that you recover from the easiest. These are the ones that are the meat and drink of all of your training because they're building your aerobic base. They're the ones that are arguably the most enjoyable because you're not really stressing your systems too much. You're just out and about enjoying, like this. Look at this.
So if you're working below LT1 like I am on this run, what that does, let's get rid of that there, is it actually expands your aerobic base. Let's get rid of that. So that gets bigger, therefore pushing up LT1 higher from below. Essentially, our aim is to get both of these thresholds up nearer our max heart rate. But how and when do you do this in your training?
So while I'm here, completely unstressed, my body can do what it does best. It can just go about being a builder without having to put any fires out. So it can increase my mitochondria numbers, red blood cells, capillary density, basically all of the things that help get oxygen to the working muscles more efficiently. And it could be this long run of an hour and a half, could be an hour, could be 30 minutes easy. The key word here is easy and below LT1.
And the thing is, there is no hard and fast heart rate. There's not even a hard and fast percentage heart rate that I could say to you, if you train at this, you're in your aerobic base zones. Everybody's different. So to guarantee we're pushing this up from below and we're working on our aerobic base, you probably want to be somewhere between zone 1 and 2. And if that's not a heart rate, we just say that feels really easy, full conversation, not feeling laboured, happy days.
And now I'm going to go up a gear. Sometimes it's on my long runs, sometimes it's a bespoke run, but I'm going into the next energy system. Hopefully you can see it on the screen now. My heart rate's going to be here, which puts me above lactate turn point 1 into what we kind of call the tempo zone. And tempo doesn't really relate to a heart rate, it's more of a feel. I liken it to my goal marathon pace eventually. Tempo for me is kind of 7 to 8 out of 10 effort. Hard but definitely manageable, not on my limit, which is a kind of where I want my marathon to be eventually, right?
So now at this feel, we're working above LT1, right? And these types of sessions are great because they are stressing LT1. They are helping your body clear the lactate that it is now accumulating. But you could run like this for hours. I mean, 3 hours. This is probably about marathon pace zone. So whilst we're teaching the body to clear lactate quite comfortably so still, we're doing 2 things actually. We are once again now pulling up LT1 from above, LT1, pulling from above, and we're probably also just having a little nudgy effect on LT2 as well, unintentionally. We're not working LT2 yet, but it will be nudged up a little bit because we're learning to deal with lactate.
And there's so many ways to pull LT1 up from above by doing tempo training, but here are my 3 favourite ways. And the first one is just like a long continuous run of 30 to 40 minutes when you're well trained in this zone. Heart rate is higher, but it's manageable. I mean, that's pretty simple. But then you've got over-unders, which is one of probably my favourite. You go out, you take your marathon pace. After a good warm-up, you do a kilometre above goal marathon pace by about 10 seconds, straight into a kilometre below, slower than goal marathon pace by about 10 seconds. So you're pushing yourself, but not too much, and you're recovering, but not quite enough. And you do that for about 30 minutes, 10K, 40 minutes, you play around. And finally, I'm gonna have a walking break to tell you this one, because it's just too hot for that kind of demo. It's within your long run. If I was in the UK, I'd be doing this more often, but within your long run, if you have a 21 kilometre long run, for example, for today, you could do things like marathon paced hotspots where maybe you do 3 lots of 3 kilometres at goal marathon pace, which is the equivalent to tempo. And then as your long runs get longer, maybe 30 kilometres, it could be 3 lots of 4K, 4 lots of 4K, 3 lots of 5K, 4 lots of 5K. You build those tempo hotspots, marathon pace hotspots into the long run. And they're 3 fantastic ways to slice tempo running and pulling up LT1 from above.
So before we did aerobic work and before we did tempo work, this was our old LT1. Now LT1 is higher up towards our max heart rate, so we're able to run faster underneath it, much more efficient. All of this, by the way, just means we're faster.
Well, that was a humbling lesson. I was demonstrating Mary tempo zone and how you can pull up LT1 from above. My heart rate never came down after that. It was pretty much a sufferfest from that point, but we've got it done. We've finished. We're heading home. On to the next. On the inside. Here we are at the track, training LT2, which is what most people know as threshold. Certainly what I refer to as actual threshold. And this is where my heart rate is right now. And you'll see that this type of session, I shouldn't be able to talk like this, by the way, but it's the first rep of the first part of the session. But this is where my heart rate's gonna be. Oh, it's a lot punchier.
Now we're on the punchy end. LT2. It is an estimate. For everyone it's different. Some people can last an hour at the lactate turn point 2. Some people can last only 20 minutes, but it's the point at which your body starts to accumulate lactate quicker than it can flush it out, and you have to slow down. You cannot continue at that pace. I always put it around here because it's the boundary between exercise using oxygen, exercise anaerobic. So here would make sense that would be steady state max or lactate threshold 2. But the key to endurance training for me is that although the threshold is here, this is not where we train, because we want to be able to recover and we want to be able to train again the next day. If we train up near lactate threshold many times, it's a real pig, it's a horrible session, we don't recover well.
Here's the thing about lactate thresholds. Just to put your mind at ease, I guess, a little bit, they're so different in everyone. Different heart rates, different amount of time you can spend at them, different recovery rates. Listen to us, heavy breathing, different recovery, all sorts of things. So we tend to do our sessions like this based on 3 metrics rather than 1. Heart rate, pace and feel. Link them together because there's just so much going on. You can't say that your lactate threshold is at this heart rate. You can't say it's at this pace. You can kind of get a feel for it, but even then, that's really hard based on whether it's hot, whether it's cold, whether it's raining, all of those things. I would say if you want a waypoint, like a marker on terms of feel and pace, for me, it's between my 10K and my half marathon pace. That seems to be the pace that I run my lactate thresholds at, and feel 8.5, getting up to 9 out of 10 by the last couple of reps. That's where I would say we are for these types of sessions.
So for me, all of my lactate threshold sessions are done kind of low zone 4, even high zone 3 sometimes, with the aim of pushing up lactate threshold 2 and being able to recover better Because here's the thing, you can train above lactate threshold too with really short, sharp sessions, 200s, 300s, 400s, but it's grim and you do not recover very well, and that's why I don't do it. I want consistency in my training. I want to be able to recover. So I train about here.
These are sessions, I do love them at the end, but they're hard sessions. And the way we achieve lactate threshold training, or as close as you can get without definitively knowing, because even our heart rates in a lab are different to out here, but we tackle it in these ways. A mixture of 1600, 1200, 1 kilometer, and 800 repeats. So on one day we might do 10 lots of 8, then we might do 10 lots of 1 kilometers. On a different session we might do 8 lots of 1200, 6 lots of 1600 on different days. I mean, it's a rinse and repeat through the block. We keep coming back to it, all at around between 10k and half marathon pace. And that, whoa, the difference that made when it came to our marathons, I cannot tell you. Where'd Mary go?
So recap, it really is this simple. If you want to push your lactate threshold 1 up from below, easy running, that's what does it. If you want to pull it up from above, tempo runs does that. And if you want to push LT2, lactate threshold, lactate turn point 2 up from below, intervals do that. You put those 3 things in your marathon training, you push both thresholds up to your max heart rate, you're gonna run faster.
Oh, and we tend to do these sessions on a Tuesday, unless we absolutely have to move them. We love them. We have like Track Tuesday. Always hard work, but we get to go home to a nice dinner. We did it Thursday last week because we were flying back from Phuket. But generally, yeah, we'll do it Tuesday night. It is where it's at, once a week.
Well, I hope this helped, and I hope that I haven't made it more complicated for you. If you learned something here, why don't you consider subscribing to the channel? But also definitely watch this video, which will help you hugely, and it's the big problem with running slow to get fast. And I will see you next week.